I'm not taking this rack apart today. Normally I'd start with the module in my hand, talk a little bit about it, point at some things, and then throw it in the rack and then demonstrate. But I think we're just going to jump straight to where it is, because I don't know if you see this, I've got a lot of stuff going on over here. I've got a lot of stuff going on over here that I kind of got out of the way, at least for this episode. So yes, I'm not taking the rack apart. Let's just start right here. We'll talk about that later. This is Season 2, Episode 20 of my modular journey. And today we're going to be looking at the Winter Modular Eloquencer. The Eloquencer arrived around April 7th of 2022. It costs around $625 US. And it was literally a no-brainer for me when it came down to picking my next sequencer. At the time, I had NerdSec over here. Well, I have Symphonian, which is not exactly a sequencer, but kind of is. And then I had Renee, which is a wild horse. I love this. So I had these three sequencers. Now I wanted something else to help me with things like percussion or precision voltage. Anything like that would probably be something I would use additional sequencers for. So what is it? Eloquencer is an 8-track CV gate sequencer that contains projects, and it can store 128 of those, which can contain up to 64 patterns. And patterns are organized into 4 banks of 16 patterns each. So you start throwing the math together there, and it winds up being a staggering, 8,192 patterns that could possibly be stored in this. And it's stored in this little SD card right here. I have a note here to mention that it is super spendy. This is a sequencer, and like the Symphonian came in at $1,000. I think the NerdSec bundle was $1,000. Renee over here was kind of more down towards the $500, $600 range, as was Melodicer. But these all do their own thing. Like Symphonian is a harmonic CV generator, whereas NerdSec is an actual hybrid tracker. Renee is a 3D Cartesian sequencer, so that means it has an X and a Y plane and a C plane or the Z plane, something that goes through. And of course, we'll talk about Melodicer in another episode, but it's a melody generator. So those things are all different. They're very expensive as far as modular equipment goes. Whereas things like Alan over here, the little touring machine, I think that was $200. Same with Ornament and Crime. I think it was probably around $217 or something like that. And I've actually purchased 2 more Ornament and Crimes because I need all that functionality. I need envelopes. I need little mini sequencers. I just need all these things. I need more power. So I do. I have more power. And then I also picked up this Temps Util, which I'll talk about in another episode as well, just in addition to the clock. There's also a separate $200 MIDI, like a little add-on or a little expander that does MIDI in and out and a couple other buttons on it. It's out of stock, so I don't have it right now, but eventually, kind of like this over here with NerdSec, it has a MIDI in and out, so you can record and play back directly from NerdSec itself to external MIDI gear. Eloquencer has a CV configuration here per track. So there's 8 tracks over here. There's CV, gate length, and ratchet as far as programmable functions per track. So here we have CV. So if you wanted to turn on a couple of CV notes, you just hit the button like that while you're in this CV mode, and it's set. You can tap CV again, and you get to the CV variable. What's that called? Variation probability. Not sure what that means exactly, but you hold the CV that you want to mess with and you turn the knob. And so now it's at a 29% for that one. It's at a 71% for that one. Maybe it's at 43, etc. So you can set that's how easy it is to program this. You tap it again, and now there's a variation range for those as well. So again, you can pick large numbers, small values, whatever. So next up is the gate button, which has a gate option here. Again, if you had those same 4 notes and you wanted to open the gate every time it hit, you do it this way. And you also have a gate probability. So again, you can tune this down to say, maybe I don't want those to hit every time. Next up is gate length. Now, gate length is, of course, from a 1/128th up to, let's see, 64, 32, and 16th. So you can have a gate length of a 16th of a note, or which is a proper gate, I suppose, versus a trigger, which would be 128th of a beat. So if, like, I have this all these gates plugged into Bitbox to do drumming triggers later, and so I don't need a long gate for that. But what I will play with is tap it again, and now you get into the gate variation probability and gate variation range, again, just like CV. So that's kind of neat. Again, per step, per pattern, per track, per song, you can just build up these really, really intricate random patterns. So that's probably the next thing I want to talk about real quick, is once you're in all these variable probability settings, this is where my love of random comes in, because if I say play these things, but play them probabilistically, is that a word? I like that. Anyway, I like that. So moving along, there's this really neat thing here called Ratchet, which I never even heard of ratcheting by name until I got into modular. I know what the sound is, which is just the stutter, real quick ratcheting sound of the keys playing or the drums playing or something like that. So ratcheting is another thing you can do here. And this one is kind of an interesting implementation of it, because again, if you turn on ratcheting, you want to ratchet your first note and you hold the knob or hold the button and turn the knob, it winds up drawing these little boxes in the, I don't know if you can see that real clearly, but it draws these little boxes in here. And it starts out with, let me go back, it starts out with a whole thing, meaning that there's no ratcheting. And you turn it once and it's up at the top, which means I guess the last half of the note is going to possibly ratchet, versus two little boxes means it's going to ratchet in both places. Or it's a smaller ratchet, like if the ratchet is 3 notes, maybe it'll only do it on the way out, on the way out of the note or on the way into the note. And so you can just see all the different positions that it's generating here as you're turning this knob. Do ratchet through the whole thing, or don't. And so that's kind of interesting, especially if you're trying to do some fancy drum stuff, drum or a stuttering keyboard part or something. I mean, that seems pretty interesting. Tapping the button again, ratchet. Now there's a ratchet probability and of course a variation probability. So that's the 4 main, I guess, components of one note that you can set. You can set all those things on one of these notes. So let's dive over here. There's 8 quantized CV outputs and 8 gate outputs off to the right here, which I have them all plugged up to either oscillators and envelopes in the rack, or going straight up here to Bitbox for drums. Let's look at a couple of things here real quick with the function button. You'll see there's these orange letters along the top, and then there's these white letters along the bottom. So orange letters are a simple tap. You just hold function and tap it, and you're in the tempo mode. Hold function again, hit shuffle, you're in the shuffle mode, that kind of thing. Scale, this is how you quantize. Hold function and long hold project, for instance, and you can now load or save the current project. Or you can hit, I have 4 projects in here right now, so I could choose to load A1, hit load, yes. And now whatever I had saved there before appears. So long press again, I want to go to A2. It loads that particular mess of stuff that I was doing, whatever that is. I can't remember off the top of my head. We were working over here in 4 though, so let's load that guy. All right, blank. Each track playback can be forward or backward or pendulum or random, like the typical things you see on a sequencer. Each track in a pattern can have independent length. So that's an interesting thing too. You have track length here. Again, hold function and tap track length and then set the beginning and the end. But now you can see I've set this pattern or this thing to be 7. So you see how the track 1 is running at 7 and looping. Everything else is still going 16. So I thought that was kind of neat for some polyrhythms. There's also this interesting free play mode, which I don't know that I would ever use, but because again, I'm not a live player, but I think the point of it is that you can do CV key recording or gate recording using this little keyboard here. You can see it's like C, C sharp, D, D sharp, F, E, F, and so forth. Kind of looks like a little keyboard, right? So I think if you tap it into free play mode, let me turn up an oscillator. That would be the Castor and Pollux. So that could be interesting for a number of reasons. There's also song mode down here. Again, long press on song, and you can see that it has song mode off or on. Once it goes on, you can then start playing parts, or you can create parts. And then, of course, you can always create the song, which will then help you build the parts. And song modes are 64 parts per song, and each part can have 16 patterns, and then chain 256 song parts. It's crazy. It's crazy. The math starts getting crazy. I don't understand it. I haven't gone past this little box, so I'm not going to pretend I know what that means. I'm kind of reading from the manual. Another really cool feature is for live performance, even though I'm not a live performance guy, is the fact that you can short press function mute, and then you can mute your channels here. So if you want to start with just just a kick, and maybe kicks on H here, then you unmute it, and then you unmute it like that. So it's kind of neat that there's this built-in mute right here to help at least wrangle in what's going on here, for live or just fun. There's also LFO and mod modes down here. Again, things I haven't really played with yet. A lot of times they tell me they're not available, so I'm not sure what mode I'm supposed to be in for that. One of my favorite things was this random function right here. If you do a random, again, short press random right here, it lights up all the tracks, it lights up all the functions, and then if you can choose a range, like let's say they're just drums, you don't really need more, all you need is gates and ratchets, you don't even need CVs. All you want to do is create gates on and off for channels C through H, pick how detailed you want it to be, and just tap it, and bam, it just generates all this random, all this stuff. It's kind of badass. So if I was to play this right now, it would sound like utter chaos. But I'm going to randomize it again. And again. So it's kind of fun. It's been a little fun making insane, chaotic. I mean, I did a video. I did a short video called "My Chaotic Mind" because trying to learn what this does. And I had this modular over here doing so much stuff. I swear I smelled smoke. It was pretty amazing. Up here in the top, there's also two CV inputs, and the CV inputs have multiple things you can assign to them. So if you long press options, here's a CV assign. Is my arm out of the way? Yes. CV1 and CV2. So that's what these two are. And if you tap one of them, you can then start assigning it multiple things. You could CV add, quantize, variable lengths. You can change the ratcheting, change the track, mute it, unmute it, fill, there's all kinds of stuff in here. What I've been using this for was there was one guy who has I'm going to link his video below as well as a good walkthrough. His video shows us how to use the channel H to randomly generate probability voltages, ranges, and then feed that voltage into CV1, which then just does a CV add and or track shift or any of those things. And then depending on which one of these tracks are enabled to receive that CV add, it's kind of crazy. So like, say for instance, I want to do it on 1 and 2 here. Let's do CV add, come down here. I'll do tracks A and B and hit it again. So now you see, in this case, whenever whatever my source is, H will then send a 0 to 10 volt change to CV1, which will then change the CV values that are programmed into tracks A and B. it's exciting. I mean, it's exciting because there's so much stuff you can do that's just not your typical boom, tap, boom, tap, boom, tap sequencing. Really dig it. Oh, I guess I forgot to mention, clock in here, reset in here, and then clock out here. So again, passing the clocks through all your equipment down the chain, and then some auxiliary jack here that could be configured to do a number of things. You can send an aux out to some end of chain or something to cause like Symphonian to advance in its pattern. That's actually a brilliant idea. I didn't think of that until just now, because that's what I'm fighting with over here on the big patch, is how to get Symphonian to behave in a 4/4 and a 2/4. Mark that down. There's copy, paste, and freeze options in here. It's pretty helpful for when you get a pattern you want and you want to make a copy of a pattern and then change a value. Like sometimes I have very static 4/4 patterns going on, but the very last beat of the last pattern before a change might need to come down, and so you can chain those together and put them into song mode and build your song that way. So that's pretty awesome. Also, open source. I have a big giant letters on my notes over here that says open source. So what does that mean? That means you can get in here and make changes and load your own software, firmware in here. That sounds pretty badass. I don't think I'm anywhere near capable of doing that, but that sounds like a pretty cool option for the propeller heads. It has an internal clock, so you can clock or tap your tempo in here, or you could use external clock source like Pamela's, or chain all your clocks together like I have going here before I started this episode. You can press H to tap. It says here, so if I tap slowly, you can see the tempo changing. Let's go slow. So see, now this is one of my songs, a little love ballad, low and slow. Then if you want to get your dance on, you can tap it a lot faster. So anyway, that's just how you can set some of the tempo. You can also, of course, dial it in manually. So that was a very long introduction to what this thing is, because again, it's huge. It does a lot. I'm not going to be able to demonstrate 90% of the functionality because I'm a newbie, but I wanted to at least talk through a lot of the things that might help you get excited. So why did I choose this? The primary allure, of course, was the probability independence per each step, per each track. You know how I am about random, so being able to probabilistically trigger notes and gates and on a chance is just huge. NerdSec has this really granular capability as well, but it's generally only 6 tracks. I haven't learned how to use the expanders yet on this, but generally, let's just say we have about 6 tracks here to mess with, and I wanted more. The secondary reason that it's super simple to use. You just saw me come in here and hit CV, hit it, turn on a note, and then raise its note values. I can just now set a note in there, and it's super easy to use. Let's do a little random here. Oops. No ratcheting, but I want CV this time. And that's it. It just generated 2 tracks of random CVs that I'm now going to pop over. I'm now gonna pop over to the rack. Let me turn that up. So now if I play this, now of course it sounds like crap. So now I want to come here and let me lower the range of this down to a more listenable state. So you could see that I was able to generate randoms in a certain range, but then where I had the track already set to be offset to C5 or A5, it was way high. And so let's do a live random. I'm going to throw in the random drums, which are all C through H. So yes, it is absolute madness. I apologize. I'm just really kind of showing you how you could just fill this thing with stuff and hit play. And then randomize. And by the way, I have channel A and B going to Castor and Pollux, and it's the left and right side, so that's why you hear left and right ears doing different things. How I plan to use it is kind of like, I mean, I'm not really a live performer, but it's definitely going to be about loading patterns and playing tracks. I guess for a reasonably sounding demo, I can load this project here that's out of A2. To load my A2 project, which is the same thing I did with NerdSec a while back. I did a little demo with NerdSec last year, Alan Parsons' song called Pipeline. And so I started programming that over again because I want to use it for some stuff, and it kind of sounds like this. Very beginning, basic stuff. So you got the left ear is the Castor and Pollux playing the synth part, and the left or the right ear playing the bass. So now, if doing this live, if I wanted to like add a ride cymbal, I could come up here to track E, which is not being used yet, and just start dropping gates in. Let's not use E. Let's use D. And now if I wanted to suddenly stutter this last one a little bit, I can then do a gate probability. That maybe it'll do that. It won't always. And then I could set these to Ratchet as well. Just to add some variation. And you can of course make it probably do that. Maybe I don't really want to do that. Maybe I only want to probably do ratchets. So, sorry I don't have a longer song for you, but that's kind of how I plan to use it. I kind of like the idea that it has 8 channels for drums. I will probably only use kick, snare, open, closed, maybe ride cymbal, maybe toms. So I might use 6 or 7 channels to run my drum box. And then I can have the other 2 channels for whatever else. Probably that precision voltage that I'm talking about. Maybe trying to wrangle that. Either way, the other thing interesting that I was thinking about is for doing drums, at least drums in this regard. I haven't tried using CV and Bitbox yet, but right now I'm only using gates. So I have 6 gates going in here to basically trigger drum noises. I have all these CVs over here on the other side that are not being used. And as far as I know, triggering drums, what is CV going to do? If I have CV running somewhere else and doing the precision voltage, maybe I will have all these CVs to do other things with while these gates are just opening and closing the drums. So that's an idea as well. So, man, I'm sure there's about 1,000 things I'm forgetting here, but That's it for episode 20 of my modular journey, the Winter Modular Eloquencer. Badass addition to the rack. And these last few modules are like mind blowers. They're just, I mean, wait till you see what these other guys do as well. It is just, love it. Coming up next, in fact, the 1010 Music Bitbox. All right, stay tuned for that.